The buyer's control of the international supply chain can be accomplished through a routed transaction from the exporting country. As the buyer's customs broker, there are opportunities for additional business and a means to secure dependence on you by orchestrating the routed transaction arrangement for your import customer. This presentation explains how working with an experienced U.S. forwarding agent can expand revenue generated by your customs brokerage business. The purchase order issuance occurs much earlier than your typical involvement as a customs broker. Key is understanding how effective purchase order management uncovers revenue producing opportunities beyond the role of the traditional freight forwarder. Since the buyer is not in the seller's country, purchasing on an E or F Incoterms of sale could be awkward. Under a routed transaction arrangement, the buyer controls the supply chain from the seller's factory or from a consolidation location in the source country. To effectively offer routed transaction services to your import customer requires an affiliation with a trusted agent in the source country. Here are some of the pictures of our primary consolidation warehouse at the York Distribution Center, near the seaports and major airports of Baltimore, Philadelphia, and New York. A foreign principal party of interest, FPPI, is the overseas buyer that is controlling a routed transaction under E or F terms through a foreign principal agent. In the U.S., only the U.S. exporter can be shown as the U.S. principal party of interest, most often the U.S. seller. U.S. export regulations authorize the foreign principal agent to make the necessary export declarations in behalf of the U.S. PPI upon the authorization of the foreign principal. You coordinate the foreign routing transactions in behalf of your import customer. H.C. Bennett is your agent in the United States to handle the collection, shipment, U.S. export, forwarding, and documentation in your behalf. What is the benefit to the U.S. seller? Typically, the U.S. seller wants to limit their involvement in the responsibilities and risks associated with the international transaction. Selling on ex-works terms or free carrier via a routed transaction arrangement is very much like a domestic sale from the seller's perspective. The U.S. seller can quote pricing from his factory or deliver it to our consolidation warehouse. International logistics are much easier and simpler for the U.S. seller under this arrangement. When the H.C. Bennett warehouse signs for the cargo on FCA terms, or our appointed collection driver signs cleanly under ex-works terms, the responsibilities of safekeeping and control are transferred from the U.S. seller to the foreign buyer. From a risk perspective, the U.S. seller has delivered the cargo to the foreign buyer at this point. When C and D terms are offered by the seller, the overall transportation costs can add 25% or more to the selling price. By not having to include transportation and delivery charges in the seller's quote, the buyer may find the seller's proposal more attractive. Here is what a seller's FCA pro forma quote may look like. Under FCA terms, all charges from receipt of the cargo at HCB's consolidation facility to the international carrier can be controlled by you in behalf of the foreign buyer, your import customer. HCB works closely with the U.S. suppliers your import customer purchases from. To assist them, we provide supplier guidance advice. When each purchase order is issued, the supplier can receive an acknowledgement from HCB showing how the line items will be classified, thus giving the supplier, in their role as the U.S. PPI, the opportunity to make any modifications before the export declaration is made. As an example, proper packaging tips is one of the guidelines provided to the supplier. Supplier guidance benefits the interests of both the supplier and your import customer. The Supplier Guidelines demo is a 3-part video that can be viewed on our website. When the seller has delivered the goods to the U.S. Foreign Principal Agent's warehouse or sells on an ex-works basis, they are pretty much out of the picture. The seller did his end of the transaction and is now in a position to be paid by the foreign buyer. HCB, as your FPPI agent, will then price the move at the direction of you, the buyer's customs broker. This opens selling opportunities you can now provide to your import customer. After the cargo is received at our warehouse, the next steps involve preparing the cargo for export and arranging international shipping. The forwarding functions provided by the FPPI agent are the same as those provided by an international freight forwarder, who typically works for and is directed by the U.S. seller. Instead, the FPPI agent works on behalf of the foreign principal. The U.S. export clearance is handled free of charge by H.C. Bennett in behalf of the U.S. seller. The declaration will conform with the classification and valuation provided by the U.S. From the buyer's perspective, here are some of the things that can adversely happen on an international shipment. When purchasing on traditional terms, other than through a routed transaction, the buyer has little direct control. By using a foreign principal agent, many of these concerns are eliminated or mitigated. The goal is to think of HCB as a U.S. extension of your service capabilities, a representative in the U.S. working with you. The next slides illustrate how benefits of a routed transaction arrangement occur. Typically, under Incoterms other than ex-works or FCA, the buyer needs to rely on the seller for shipping status information. In turn, the seller often has to check with their U.S. freight forwarder for an update. Under the ex-works or FCA terms in which an FPPI agent is employed, the buyer has a direct link in the U.S. to give quicker and possibly more accurate shipment status information. HCB's online PO Viewer shows real-time visibility of the status of each purchase order line item, when it is received at our consolidation warehouse, and how it is being shipped internationally. To view more benefits of this, go to our website. To ease identification of the cargo at destination, the FPPI agent can arrange to label it to the buyer's specifications. Barcode labeling is available to be shown on the shipping label where the receiver has scanning capability. Wouldn't it be of significant benefit if your import customer could easily change the shipping mode? The initial purchase order may direct to ship ocean. Circumstances change after the order is shipped by the supplier and the order is needed much earlier. HCB, as your USPPI agent, can easily have cargo routing change from ocean to air. Changing the mode after it is shipped from the supplier would be either impossible or very difficult and likely more costly for the seller to accommodate when other than the routed transactions terms are involved. To meet specs and satisfy the buyers that the correct material is being shipped, an inspection can take place on the buyer's terms at the FPPI agent's warehouse. The foreign buyer has the satisfaction of knowing an agent in the U.S. is working in his behalf and has his interests at heart. Often certain products require a witness test or inspection prior to leaving the U.S. The neutral FPPI agent facility may provide the inspection location, or the FPPI agent could coordinate a testing service inspection at the seller's location. An inventory of the order can be performed in the U.S. before the cargo is shipped internationally. Obviously, shortages are better addressed in the U.S. compared to discovery by the foreign buyer. Our warehouse takes pictures when the cargo is tendered to the international carrier, air or ocean. This provides a record of how the cargo was packed by our warehouse and can be shared with your import customer. Many times there are clearance snags when the destination customs or that country's other government agencies, if the documents are not completed properly. Under XWorks or FCA terms, the FPPI agent can provide a scanned draft of the documents for review by the foreign buyer or his customs broker. The master bill of lading can be reviewed for possible modification prior to sending to the steamship line. How the goods are classified and valued for U.S. export declaration purposes can be shared with the customs broker to sync possible saving clerical time by both parties. You can assure the documents will be accepted to your customs authorities. Think of this, the time saved, if classification codes are already provided to your entry clerk. The consolidated commercial invoice packing list detail and ancillary clearance documents can be reviewed for format as required by the destination customs. The breakdown of the charges per the Incoterms applied can be formatted for optimal customs clearance purposes. Getting paid via a letter of credit on FCA or XWorks terms can use the forwarder certification of receipt as the operative document in lieu of the normal bill of lading. Once the cargo is received in apparent good condition by our warehouse, we can issue the FCR to the advising U.S. bank. Your import customer gains the additional assurance their order is complete and ready to be tendered to the international carrier. And this ends part 1 of Customs Broker Revenue Opportunities.